Senator Day.
Mr. Acting Deputy President, I rise today to talk about this bill because it is a subject that I know a little bit about because I've worked in the building and construction industry for nearly 40 years. However, a definite split has developed over the years in construction between the commercial construction industry on the one hand and the housing construction industry on the other. And the glaring difference between these two construction environments is that you just do not get the kind of criminal conduct on home building housing construction sites that you do on commercial construction sites. The question then is, so what is the difference? Why do we not have the criminal behaviour or anything like it on the home building sites and in the housing industry? The answer is the CFMEU. We do not see the CFMEU and its members on housing construction sites. Now, we're having this debate about reinstating the Australian Building and Construction Commission, and it is because the ABCC is the only body capable of keeping the CFMEU in check on commercial sites. Those who have been listening carefully to my questions to various ministers in this place will know that I've been advocating for unemployed people to be able to work on terms and conditions which suit them. The unemployed are presently, Mr. Acting Deputy President, trapped in a workplace regulation prison. They can't escape because there are so many patronising organisations who say, we have to lock you up in this workplace regulation prison for your own good, because you just might be exploited if we let you out. Yet, as I've given examples before, nobody stops a young person travelling to some of the most dangerous places on earth, where they could be taken hostage or be harmed. Yes, the Department of Foreign Affairs issues travel warnings about some countries, but ultimately respects the rights of people to go wherever they like in the world and take whatever risks they like. There is no travel prison regulating where people can travel, but for some reason we respect an Australian citizen's inalienable right to travel and expose themselves to potentially life-threatening risk. But if they want to go and work somewhere, then they are captive to over 2,000 pages of workplace regulations. In some circumstances, the work they might wish to do on terms and conditions which suit them is illegal for them to engage in. We hear the term paternalism used in this place and throughout history, but the epitome of paternalism is the workplace regulation prison. I challenge one person arguing in favour of workplace regulation to say that they have never taken the cheapest quote to have a job done. Whether it's something you need fixing at home, the servicing of your car, which hairdresser you go to, it is human nature to shop around or to change service providers because you found a better deal. This isn't considered criminal behaviour when you choose the cheapest quote. Yet somehow when it comes to labour in other contexts, there are regulations to say that the minimum price, for example, for working on a weekend is $40 an hour. But I would say, please spare a thought for the thousands of unemployed struggling on $5 an hour. These people are ready, willing and able to work for $20 an hour, but it's against the law. The law says no, $40 an hour, cafe owners and others must pay. But the cafe owners and others can't afford $40 an hour, so they don't open their doors. everyone loses. The unemployed person stays on the dole, the cafe owner can't open, and the customers can't buy what they want. Mr. Acting Deputy President, it is immoral to deny people the right to work and support their families. The contrary view on workplace regulation is this view that you simply must lock up the unemployed in this prison to protect themselves from exploitation. It's the very reason that these powerful organisations are a law unto themselves. But anyway, I digress. Back to the dire state of the commercial construction industry. What we are seeing here is a leadership failure at every level. At the last count, there are something like 80 different definitions of leadership. But my favourite definition of leadership is that which you will not tolerate. What is it that you will not tolerate? That determines what kind of a leader you are. And what we're seeing with this in the commercial construction industry is a total failure of leadership. Let's look at some of them. The previous Labor government deliberately removed any notion that it was necessary to constrain criminal behaviour by certain unions. They were prepared to tolerate criminal behaviour, a failure. The police have failed to uphold the law in favour of so-called keeping the peace. They will tolerate criminal behaviour if it means keeping the peace, another failure of leadership. The courts have failed to uphold justice. In some cases, those who have suffered unlawful behaviour wait years and years for justice. As we know, justice delayed is justice denied. And now we see in this bill the government's desire to increase penalties out of frustration at the relatively low penalties and therefore the low economic incentive to promote lawful behaviour. The judicial system, another failure of leadership. When you have these growing power bases developing on construction sites, you get these ridiculous situations such as those this bill seeks to rectify, including contractors being forced to employ a non-working shop steward. Situations where if one worker is offered overtime, all workers have to be offered overtime, even if there isn't enough work. Trade contractors being required to provide certain conditions to their workers, even if they already have lawful arrangements with them. This bill would hope to address these and other allegations of standover tactics, intimidation and violence. The Independent Contractors Association of Australia asserts in its submission to the Victorian CCCU inquiry that independent contractors working on the Westgate Bridge upgrade in 2009-10 were taunted regularly that it's a long way to fall, mate, because they were not members of the CFMEU. This is outrageous. I've never heard in 40 years of working on housing construction sites someone saying to a fellow construction worker, it's a long way to fall, mate. The ICA has posted footage of the violence and foul verbal abuse that workers were subjected to entering a worksite. The ICA went on to assert that when the ABCC was in operation before 2010, the ABCC in large measure, and I'm quoting, in large measure curtailed a good deal of the abuse and harassment in the Victorian construction industry, although sadly it did not eliminate it. The Greens talk at times about a social licence to operate. In my opinion, CFMEU does not even have a social licence to exist, let alone operate. Senator Lambie has called for the CFMEU to be deregulated. In his book Blink, Malcolm Gladwell talked about thin slicing. Blink, he called the book, and I'd recommend it. Blink, weighing up situations in the blink of an eye. Looking for the shibboleths, the dead giveaways. That term shibboleth actually comes from the Bible. For those who are not familiar with the Old Testament, shibboleth is Hebrew for stream. Jephthah and the Gileadites fought the Ephraimites and captured the Jordan crossing. And to distinguish who was friend or foe, they had everyone say the word shibboleth. If they couldn't pronounce it correctly, they knew they were the enemy. Hence, shibboleth became an identifier or a dead giveaway. It would be like hearing someone say, "Where did I put my jandals?" Straight away you'd know they were a New Zealander. It's a shibboleth. Gladwell calls this thin slicing. He says you can take a big salami, and no matter how thin you slice that salami, everything you want to know about the whole salami is in that thin slice. Well, Mr. Acting Deputy President, I note the CFMEU gave over $100,000 to the Greens before the last election. How morally bankrupt can you get when you oppose this legislation because you've received money from the CFMEU? The Greens, the party that pretends to be a party of ethics and morality, gladly taking money from the CFMEU. There's your blink moment, your thin slice of the Greens. The Greens shibboleth. Everything you want to know about them is right there. But look by contrast at the Shop, Distributed and Allied Employees Association. I have never once heard allegations that they have engaged in criminal behaviour or provided funding to the Greens. The shoppies have more in common with Family First than they have with the Greens. Independent Contractors Australia says in its submission I mentioned earlier that the previous federal construction code changed the dynamic of reducing violence, harassment and intimidation on construction sites. It did so because, and I quote, any construction business involved or permitting anti-competitive industrial relations activity, including violence and intimidation, found itself excluded from government work. This changed the commercial reward system because the financial benefits from violence and intimidation were removed. Unfortunately, this was undone when the ABCC was closed down. This bill creates the capacity for a new building code. I've heard about the huge cost blowouts enabled by the existing code. In South Australia, my home state, the state Labor government is building a brand new hospital, recently built a health and medical research institute, made a major expansion of the grandstands at Adelaide Oval, and is, with the help of the Commonwealth, about to commence major and long overdue roadworks. We've had to fight hard to get Commonwealth funding to support these projects, and yet where will significant percentages of that federal taxpayer money go? Into supporting the inefficiencies provided by the current building code. Look at the stadium construction project my West Australian colleagues have happening in their capital, and a new footbridge they think will be better than Adelaide's new footbridge. Indeed, just on Thursday, the Financial Review reported that 76 workers at the new Children's Hospital project in Perth were found by the federal court to have engaged in unlawful industrial action on a children's hospital project. And I see Senator Smith nodding in his home state. If taxpayers in the states that we senators here represent want value for state and federal taxpayer money, we ought to demand that building codes support efficient civil construction projects. That's not to mention private projects like the Olympic Dam expansion and other mining opportunities. When you have major inefficiencies such as major work stoppages on questionable grounds, it is proper for the government to look at how we can ensure that those trying to create jobs and improve our economic situation can get on with the job to deliver projects on time and on budget. Let me quote from a report by Deloitte Access Economics last year, submitted to the Productivity Commission. It is also worth highlighting that the rate of engineering construction cost increase has been notably higher for public sector projects than private sector projects. Given the significant demand seen for resources investment and the combination of a rising dollar and high import component for resources projects, the cost of imported materials and so on, one might have thought this would be the other way around. A loss of competitiveness in delivering infrastructure projects creates difficulties for the Australian economy. I've heard allegations being made in this place about behaviour on construction sites which makes one's hair curl, and towards Fair Work building and construction officials. They are appalling allegations. I was willing to support the continuation of the powers needed by the Fair Work Building Commission during a previous session of Parliament. They were about to expire because I believe there were legitimate concerns that needed investigation. But for those reasons, same reasons, and the factors I have outlined, whilst I'm not generally in favour of expanding government power, the situation in the commercial construction industry has become so bad we need to restore the ABCC. I support the bill.
Thank you, Senator Day. Senator Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy President, and another very well-informed, considered contribution to these matters by Senator Day. And those senators on the other side of the chamber would be well served if they paid more attention to the contributions of senators like Senator Day, so I commend him for that very, very powerful presentation. But it's also my pleasure